We welcome back Don Tapscott, author of Macroeconomics, Rebooting Business and the World. We spent the week looking at society in the information age, and tonight we're looking at modern business. In an era of increasing collaboration, does the corporation need to change? Well, let's start, Don, hello, by talking about the typical corporation as it is today. What's it look like?
Well, throughout the 20th century, we created wealth through what the management scientists call the vertically integrated corporation. That basically meant it did everything from soup to nuts inside the boundaries. And 75 years ago, a Nobel Prize-winning economist named Ronald Coase asked a deceptively simple question. He said, "Why does this firm exist? If Adam Smith is right and the open market's the best mechanism to determine how goods and resources and information are allocated, why isn't everybody an independent contractor at every step along the way in production?" And he said the answer is essentially collaboration costs. He used the word transaction cost, but he meant the cost of collaboration. He said the cost of search, this is 75 years ago, of finding all the right information or people to do something in an open market, that would be prohibitive. So we bring this stuff inside the boundaries of this thing called the corporation, where you have like filing cabinets to find information or org charts to find people. And the big industrialists like Henry Ford understood this. Within the boundaries of the Ford Motor Company was a power plant, a steel mill, a shipping company, a glass factory. He had mahogany forests in Honduras to get the wood for his dashboards. But what happened is that information technology and eventually the internet began to radically drop these collaboration costs. And that meant that companies could focus on what they do best, and they could build networks, I call them business webs, to partner to do the rest. And this is changing the whole nature of what is a corporation and how we get talent to do things, because talent can now be outside our boundaries.
How's the digital revolution changing the marketplace?
Well, very fundamentally, because marketing for the last century was based on print, radio, television, one-to-many, one-size-fits-all, controllable messages and broadcast media. And now we have this highly distributed communications platform where you can't control the message in the way that you could. And so just about everything about marketing changes, I think. If you go to business school, you hear about the 4 Ps of marketing: product, place, price, and promotion. Well, young people don't want products, they want experiences. Place, well, 2/3 of young people, for any significant purchase, they already know what they're going to buy before they go to the store. So the place is less important, and it needs to intersect with the digital world. As for price, I mean, we think that sellers establish prices, but now when people have power, there are new, what we call price discovery mechanisms. It's sort of a mouthful, but it means that the price is something that gets determined between buyers and sellers. It started with stuff like eBay, but now Groupon is group purchasing, and get ready for a whole bunch of really interesting stuff. There's a Toronto-based company called GiveGet that's going to fundamentally change retail. And then promotion, well, you don't promote, you engage people. So marketing is being turned upside down.
I have to ask, what's GiveGet and how's it going to change retail?
Well, here's the idea that there's all this unlocked value that exists in the marketplace. So Ed Mirvish's company can sell 4 tickets to the Lion King for $100 each. And you can buy a To Me bag at Sears for $400. But what GiveGet does is, and neither of them wants to discount, because that will hurt their brand. So GiveGet enables you, because they can buy the tickets wholesale for $200, and they can buy the To Me bag for $200. You can buy the To Me bag and you get 4 free tickets. So you get $800 of value for $400. Or you can buy the tickets to the Lion King and you get a free To Me bag. Now, I don't know if the Lion King's playing right now or if that deal has been done, but this is really interesting. One of the things you could do is you can buy a To Me bag and give a charitable donation of a couple $100. So we're talking about hundreds of billions, maybe trillions of dollars of transactions that could be affected by all of this, and it creates all kinds of new opportunities for consumers.
Okay, I want to shift gears a little bit. I
Yeah.
want to read a little bit from a website of Innocentive. Now, it's a service that calls itself a bridge between ideas and solutions. Here's a bit of what they say on their website. Recognized as an open innovation and crowdsourcing pioneer, Innocentive's proven methodology, expanding global community of millions of problem solvers, and cloud-based technology platform enable organizations to tap all potential sources of innovation, employees, customers, partners, and the world's largest solver community to accelerate their pace of innovation and evolve into true challenge-driven enterprises. Now, Don, I don't really understand half
Well,
of
that was
those
quite
words.
a mouthful, wasn't it? Boy, that's.
But it seems to me, and I've been told that
Yeah.
these guys are cutting edge. So what are they doing that's so great?
Well, they are. If you're, say, a pharmaceutical company and you're trying to find a new molecule, the old model was the people who would find that are inside your boundaries. Well, now you can go out to these idea agoras, they're markets for ideas, like Innocentive. Innocentive's one of them. It's a very good one. It's been very successful. And there are uniquely qualified minds out there. There are way more of them that are going to be inside the boundaries of your company. So innovation used to happen within corporations. Now it's happening out on networks. And this is a big change, and it's great. Now, on the other hand, the pharmaceutical companies need to make some big shifts in the way that they think about intellectual property. Like they come up with a molecule, and then they do all these clinical trials that cost hundreds of millions or billions of dollars, and they don't share data. Well, the pharmaceutical companies in the next 2 years are going to lose a quarter to 40% of their revenue. It's called the patent cliff, as all these patents are going generic. So what are they going to do? Cut 40% of their costs? I mean, you can't do that. So they need to change the whole model of science and of pharmaceutical research to start to share clinical trial data.
Give me an example. Who's really doing this stuff?
Well, there are some companies that are in the pharmaceutical industry, like Lilly and others. I know Bristol Myers Squibb. I was just meeting with them, and they're very interested in this whole thing. There are also in Toronto, there's a group called Mars, and there are people at Mars, a guy named Aled Edwards, who's leading this whole charge of getting the biotech and biopharma and pharmaceutical companies to work together to share information.
You talk about someone or Mars that's willing seemingly to embrace a different model. But I'm wondering how many companies are really open to embracing change?
Well, it's slow, but it's happening now in every industry. I mean, there's that great story from Wikinomics that is about a company that called Gold Corp. And the way I learned it, and this is gold mining, okay? The innovation and discovery of gold. Now, how could the internet help with that? Well, this guy named Rob McEwen actually moved across the street from me, and he held a cocktail party to meet the neighbors, and he says, "You're Don Tapscott, I read your books." I said, "Great, what do you do?" And he says, "Well, I used to be a banker, now I'm a gold miner." And he tells me this amazing story about he took over this mine, and his geologist couldn't tell him where the gold was. So he'd give them more money, millions of dollars, to get more geological data. They'd come back. They couldn't analyze the data to tell him where to go into production. He was so frustrated, he was ready to shut the whole thing down. But one day, he had an epiphany. He wondered, if my geologists don't know where the gold is, maybe somebody else does. So he did a radical thing. He took his geological data, biggest secret in the mining industry, he published it and held a contest on the internet called the Gold Corp Challenge. It's basically $500,000 for anyone who can tell me, do I have any gold? And if so, where is it? He got submissions, 77 of them, from all around the world. They used techniques that he'd never heard of. And for his $500,000 in prize money, he found $3.4 billion worth of gold. And the value of his company went from $90 million to $10 billion. And I can tell you, because he's my neighbor, he's a happy camper. So this is a different way of finding gold that's enabled by the internet.
I guess what you're calling for is a really big shift from the business model being based on competition to collaboration. And that's a very huge shift that needs to happen.
Well, it's not quite right, because competition is still at the heart of capitalism. But the point here is that you can compete differently now through collaboration. Let me give you an example. You know, the Linux operating system, developed by thousands of programmers, nobody owns it. So it's in the commons. okay? It's a cooperative thing, kind of like a public park. IBM was confronted with Linux, and it was a threat to them because they were in the operating system business. But they thought about it, and rather than trying to kill Linux, they supported it. They gave away $400 million in software to the Linux movement. They ended up saving themselves $1 billion a year developing their own proprietary operating system, and they created this platform on which they built a multi-billion-dollar hardware and services business. And they also got to stick it to Microsoft, probably not in that order of importance. So it's not about cooperation for the sake of, socialism or something like that. It's new, smarter thinking about intellectual property, about collaboration, about openness that enables you to compete better.
Earlier this week, we talked about the net generation, the people that grew up with the internet, digital natives, as a lot of people call them.
Yeah.
How are businesses adapting to meet the expectations of the net generation?
Well, slowly and bizarrely to me. I mean, as consumers, these kids are very, very different. They come into the workforce, they have this fabulous culture, the best of them, the top half. They're a culture of innovation and collaboration and speed and authentication and customization, and they view work and learning and collaboration and having fun as all being the same activity. You know what? This is the new culture of work. So, how wonderful is that? They come into the workforce, at their fingertips, they have better tools than exist in our most sophisticated companies. What do? We stick them in a cubicle, treat them like Dilbert, try and supervise them, and then we take away their tools. We do things like banning Facebook. This is bizarre. A Canadian province, the premier, banned Facebook. Like, how bizarre is that? I was talking to one of his executives. I said, what was the effect of doing that? He said, well, everybody went to Twitter. I talked to a youngster working for a U.S. federal agency. What was the effect of banning Facebook? He had a different answer. He said it was the single most demoralizing thing management has ever done. It said to our generation, we don't understand collaboration, we don't get your tools, and we don't trust you. So now, it's not that Facebook or Twitter are the new tools for the corporation, but there are industrial strength social networks and microblogging and other tools that are creating a new operating platform for the corporation. And companies that embrace these tools do better. And this is about getting beyond electronic mail. I was talking to this one youngster, it's a big audience actually, I don't know, it's like 7,000 people. I said to her, do you use email? And she said, oh no, Mr. Tapscott, that's like yesterday's technology. And I said, if you did use email, what would you use it for? And she says, email is sort of like a formal technology, say for sending a thank you letter to one of your friend's parents. That would be a good use of email. So if that's what email is, how do we get beyond that? And these kids can show us how, but we don't listen to them.
I want to go back to something that we were talking about a little bit earlier, and that was what businesses are doing, right? At the end of the day, businesses want to make money, and I'm wondering what evidence is there that this new approach will make businesses more money?
Well, it's not just that it will make them more money. If they don't embrace the internet and these new principles of collaboration and sharing some intellectual property and interdependence and integrity and so on, they're going to decline and disappear. And the evidence of that is becoming very, very strong. I mean, you just take something like Cisco, okay? Here was a company that hardly existed 15 years ago, and they adopted a network business model. They focused on what they did best, and they partnered to do the rest. That was my little poem at the time. It's not exactly, Shakespeare, but, and they succeeded, and their competitors fell behind. A network business model conferred competitive advantage. Not just they made more money, they succeeded, and companies like Nortel, sadly, did not.
Don, terrific talking to you this week. Thanks for coming in. Don Tapscott is the author of 14 books on information technology in business and society, and he's been our guest all week. Don, thank you very much.
It's been my pleasure.